friends from the media, welcome to this closing press conference of the 27th CHOGM. Our leaders have had lengthy but very fruitful discussions. Thank you for your renewed interest in CHOGM. My name is Satendra Bindra. I'm the Director of Communications for the Commonwealth Secretariat. I'd first like to say that this is being live streamed, and I would like to sort of lay out some of the parameters of this meeting. We have our panelists. They'll make brief opening statements, and I'll introduce them. Following that, we'll take questions. Please identify yourself when you ask your questions, and we'll try to accommodate as many as possible. But first, introductions. Starting from that corner, His Excellency Mohammed Hassan, Foreign Minister for Malaysia. We then have our host. I'll introduce our host second. Her Excellency, the Honorable Fiame Naomi Mataafa, the Prime Minister of Samoa. Congratulations for your excellent, excellent session. I should also add for the excellent hospitality. I think we're all agreed there. I'd then like to introduce the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister, His Excellency, the Minister for Foreign Affairs and European Affairs and Trade for Malta, Dr. Ian Borg. Welcome, sir. Our Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Patricia Scotland, KC. Welcome, Secretary General. Good evening. And the last speaker is the Foreign Minister for Rwanda, Olivier Nduhungirehe. Thank you, all of you. I deeply appreciate the time. I know it's been tiring, but I'd like to start with, I have introduced Malaysia.
Oh, sorry.
I'd like to start with our host government. I'd like to start with Your Excellency, the Honorable Fiame Naomi Mataafa, to make your opening remarks. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Talofan, good evening. Could I start off by our apologies for keeping the media waiting? But you will appreciate that 2 days is quite a short period of time to conclude on some very comprehensive agreements within the Commonwealth family. Just the structure of the meeting, so that we're talking in context. On Thursday, we had the Foreign Affairs Ministers meeting, essentially to review the communique, which has been a year in work, that brings together the negotiated agreements on a whole range of issues to the Commonwealth and the issues which have been brought to this meeting. At that meeting, we had a clear script, only some few smaller items that needed to be refined, and I'm pleased to report that the leaders received essentially a clear communique recommendation from the meeting of the Ministers of Foreign Affairs. Our leaders' meeting yesterday took into account the reporting of key works being done by the organization, essentially the secretariat work, and then also the different working groups of the organization, mostly what we call the Commonwealth Ministers of CMED? Commonwealth Ministers Action Group. This is the group of ministers that get to consider some of the pressing issues which arise from time to time, and it mostly has to do with the infringements, shall I say, of on democratic principles upon which our membership of the Commonwealth is premised. So these developments in our Commonwealth family that arise from time to time. So that committee reports to the leaders on their work. The other important consideration of the leaders is then to review the communique, which is the range and scope of issues before the organization. So although we did have a clear script, we still have the opportunity to have the discourse at the leaders' level and to endorse what has been essentially a negotiated process over a period of about a year. The final work of the leaders' meeting, and took us a while this afternoon leading up to this press conference, is essentially the summarized or the prioritized issues that is expressed through a leader's statement. The leader's statement go hand in hand then with the more lengthy and comprehensive communique. You will appreciate that very often in international organizations, and the Commonwealth is also one of those organizations, especially with a membership of 56, coming to agreements takes time, and having the opportunity for the membership to get together and to really have in-depth discourse on important issues is where this meeting is very important. So perhaps as an introductory remark, this is setting the frame of what the work of the meeting. Of course, being hosted in the Pacific, climate change is very much at the top of the agenda and the decisions taken by the leaders. Perhaps at this point I might stop, and other colleagues can then begin to slowly unfold the range of issues that we have been discussing. Thank you.
Excellency, thank you very much. And I'd now like to give the floor to the Foreign Minister of Malaysia to express what's top of mind for him and how the meeting went from his perspective. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Excellency Prime Minister Naomi and colleagues. Over the last 2 days, this is a very, very long meeting indeed, and we discussed various matters, especially as what mentioned by Prime Minister Naomi just now with regard to this climate change, and also talking about how best that the global south especially is talking about just to close the gap, and also how best that this transfer technology and this new financial architecture should be developed, because talking about climate change, talking about green technology, talking about AI technology is going to cost us a lot of money. And we need this kind of support from the developed country with regards to this new arrangement of financing, and also the support in terms of technology. The rest, we are quite happy and very happy to say that the meeting is very fruitful, and we'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate Prime Minister Naomi and the people of Samoa. Thank you very much for your kind hospitality. This is not easy to organize such a big gathering of the head of government, head of states, and leaders from all over the world, for that matter. And congratulations again. And rest assured that's a support from Malaysia to you. Samoa is going to be the next 2 years going to lead the chair of Commonwealth. And as usual, Malaysia is still in the CIMEC together with the new chairman, Dr. Ian, chairman of CIMEC. So we will be there to support this, the new Secretary General and the Board of Governors in London. So congratulations again, Prime Minister. You have done a great job. The people of Samoa are very friendly. And I hope that I can come here again whenever it's available. Thank you.
Appreciate those comments. Thank you. Now I'd like to offer the floor to the Deputy Prime Minister for Malta, His Excellency Dr. Ian Borg. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, dear Prime Minister, for hosting us in your beautiful country for the first CHOGM in the Pacific. And I'm sure we all agree that has been a unique and a truly memorable experience for all of us. Despite the challenges we face, the Commonwealth remains a remarkable space of opportunity, representing 2.7 billion people. And as it was highlighted during this week, economic and trade exchanges have expanded significantly intra-Commonwealth, and the potential is huge. Engaging also with our vibrant civil society is crucial in ensuring that we bring to life the aspirations of our citizens, especially our youth. I was energized by the impressive contributions from young people across the Commonwealth. We had the opportunity to meet them earlier this week. Then, as a European country, we always try to bring to the Commonwealth a wider perspective. I better wait for the landing. And I had the opportunity once again today to reaffirm our commitment that we will always push for more EU-Commonwealth cooperation in this regard. I recalled how Malta used the privilege that was serving on the Security Council last year, and this one we brought to the fora important discussions and a ministerial debate on sea level rise, and therefore the effect of climate change on security and the nexus between the two. We look forward also to Antigua and Barbuda. They will be hosting the next CHOGM. And we have more work to do in the coming days as we approach COP29. Various leaders mentioned how it is important to cooperate together when it comes to climate resilience and sustainability. Malta will also push forward an initiative on measuring climate vulnerability and resilience in the margins of COP29. We had the opportunity as well during today's session to once again discuss AI and how AI will drive global progress in the coming years, but is also there's also a growing concern over a potential AI divide, and how we can utilize AI to maximize the potential of, for instance, the Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub, how we can utilize AI now that we have the performances analysis data, all things that the Commonwealth Secretariat, thanks to the leadership of Secretary General Scotland, managed to achieve in the past months and years. So these are the highlights I wanted to make reference to. Of course, we cannot but extend heartfelt thanks to the outgoing Secretary General, Right Honourable Scotland, for her exceptional contribution, and we wish all the very best to the incoming Secretary General from Ghana.
Excellency, you've identified a lot of areas of cooperation. Thank you for your words. I'd now like to give the floor to the Honourable Minister from Rwanda. Excellency, we would appreciate some words from you as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm here representing His Excellency President Kagame, who's the outgoing chairman in office of the Commonwealth since the CHOGM that was held in Kigali in June 2022. First of all, of course, I want to thank our host, Her Excellency Fiame Mataafa, for her warm hospitality. And when you say warm hospitality, is not a polite formula that we use in international conferences. It's the reality that all of us, 55 delegations, have found in this beautiful island of Samoa. You have all seen those villages where every villages here in Samoa were adopting every of 55 member states of Commonwealth, which is a way of raising awareness here in this country about our community. And I also thank her on the way she led our work over the past 2 days, the executive sessions of yesterday and the retreat of today, where we considered important issues like climate change, which is, of course, an important issue of Commonwealth member states. We are a diverse community with countries in the Pacific that are facing the rise of sea levels. We have countries in Africa, in southern Africa, for example, that were victims of drought, El Nino, earlier this year. And we have countries in the Caribbean that also faced hurricanes. So we have shared concern and shared interest in climate change. This is an issue that we have discussed, but we also discussed about Commonwealth trade, which is important. This should be an economic bloc that should boost all of us, because most of Commonwealth members are developing countries, which should benefit of this community. We also talked about AI, about the way we can empower our youth, about the skills of tomorrow, because most of the Commonwealth member states have a very young population, and we need to find the jobs for that population, for the job for tomorrow, and which implies the digitization, AI, and so on and so forth. And we also talked about issues of peace and security that are also important for our community. So we had a good meeting, and of course I cannot end without thanking the outgoing Secretary General, Patricia Scotland, for her outstanding leadership for this community over the past 9 years, where she was always available and working for every and each member state of the Commonwealth. And we hope that the new Secretary General, which I congratulate, my sister Shirley Bochwe from Ghana will base on her achievements. So we had a good meeting, and we hope that we will come again to Samoa to enjoy this incredible hospitality that we have enjoyed over, I would say, the whole week. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as you may have observed, we are seeing some trends. Everybody's talking about AI, youth, trade, climate change, peace. But it gives me pleasure now to give the floor to the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, and perhaps she can tell us what the main headlines are. Over to you.
Well, firstly, good evening, everyone. This has been an historic Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. Not only have we received a warm Pacific welcome from not just the magnificent chair, who we have enjoyed to the full, but by every single Samoan. The way in which all our member states have been welcomed into the heart of the Samoan people has been absolutely extraordinary. There are those I know from each of the delegations who now feel entirely Samoan. Indeed, I wonder, Prime Minister, how many overstayers you will have to remove. The reason that this has been an historic CHOGM is this is the first CHOGM to be held in a small Pacific blue island state. And that is poignant for the following reasons. Every member state who came to this beautiful country acknowledged that we are now in crises. The threat of climate change is no longer distant, it is existential, and it is here. And it was therefore incredibly important that the 56 countries traveled the thousands of miles to come and see for themselves the reality not just of Samoa's beauty, but also for the danger she sat in. And it was also significant that during this week we experienced the storms and the rain and the difficulties which are the daily reality of those who live on small island developing states surrounded by big blue beautiful oceans. And it was right that it was here that the Commonwealth came together to really question what can we now do about sea level rise, because the threat of sea level rise is omnipresent for each and every one of our islands. It is easy to talk about someone else's reality. It is an entirely different experience to walk in their shoes, to feel it, to taste it, to hear it, and to have the privilege of speaking to the people who live this reality every day. I believe that sharpened the will of every single leader. Those who had not understood fully, and there were none that I could discern, had a deepening of their understanding. And this new Apia Ocean Declaration is one of the most important things we did this week. Why? Because seas are rising. The level poses an immediate threat to a number of our countries. But it goes beyond that, because most of our small island developing states are big blue ocean states. And for those who live in the Pacific, for those who live in the Caribbean and the Indian Ocean, it is not just the land which is your home, it is the sea. It is your ocean. It is the ocean which gives you the air you breathe, the food you eat, and sustains your livelihood, your culture. And for millennia, the people here in this region have been the guardians of the ocean. But what we now face is a new reality, because if the sea continues to rise and the level continues to go up as it is, then the reality is that for many islands, they face the threat that their sea, which is something they've loved, will subsume their whole land. And if that happens, it is absolutely essential that their home, which is the ocean, should not be lost to them too. So what this declaration does is to say that even if the sea rises and subsumes the land, if marine boundaries have been fixed, they will remain. And therefore the peoples of these islands will be secure that their knowledge that this ocean, which has been theirs for millennia, will continue in the future. But the fight is really here. So for me, that was the most important step forward. We should never underestimate the strength of our Commonwealth. 56 countries, 2.7 billion people, small countries, large countries, rich countries, poor countries, but bound by one absolutely secure commitment to our values, standing together shoulder to shoulder to make sure that climate justice, equity reigns. You will see from the communique that we talked about everything, and we took action on everything. Not just on oceans, but on climate change, on how we use the geospatial data that is now available, enhanced by AI, to get the money we need. The Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub, with just $8.2 million, has already delivered more than $360 million, and we've got $500 million in the pipeline, but we know that that is never going to be enough. If you look at the reality, we need trillions. So we've been talking about how do we get the money we need in order to adapt and to mitigate. And we've spoken about the reform of the international financial institutions, about the importance of our Universal Vulnerability Index, which led the way to the UN's multi-dimensional vulnerability index. We talked about debt. The Commonwealth now has $4.5 trillion managed by our Meridian system. But the second reality is if our nations aren't drowning as a result of sea level rise, they're drowning in debt. And that debt has a direct correlation to the climate crisis that we're facing. So our leaders spoke about equity. And we also spoke about our young people. We have more than 1.5 billion young people under the age of 30. We spoke about their future. We spoke about the work that we have undertaken with our forums, and we understand that our young people have to be the forefront of our minds, and that's why you will find in the communique we also thought and spoke about the digital revolution, the technological revolution, and how we will harness the power of AI. AI will join and add 15.7 trillion to the global economy by 2030. We want to make sure there is equity in those who have access to that bounty. We talked about the way trade has grown in our Commonwealth, and we hope and we are confident that it should reach about $1 trillion by 2026, $2 trillion by 2030. But there is much that we can do to enhance the interoperability, to take advantage of the 21% trade advantage we currently have, and to keep on growing the economy so that we can have the money we need. And we haven't forgotten our older people too, because we looked at how we age well. And so all of these issues have been enhanced by something which I believe, as the outgoing Secretary General, is quite remarkable. Our leaders have never turned their face against the problems that we have in this world. They have steadfastly and with a focused intent faced each other to find the solutions we need to heal our world. And so, as the outgoing Secretary General, I feel huge pride by what this CHOGM has achieved, steered by one of the most skillful, the most generous chairs we have ever been privileged to hear. I also wondered, and I'm saying this to all Samoans, how you are going to keep your Prime Minister safe, because everybody wants to steal her. So I would watch out. I would check all their luggage while they leave, because you might find she's been secreted in someone's trunk. She has managed this CHOGM with style, with warmth, with generosity, and with a kindness and a love of humanity which we all benefited. This has been a remarkable experience for us all. This is the 75th year of our Commonwealth. We were so grateful to have His Majesty the King Charles III with us. It is a long way to come for someone who has had challenges in terms of their health. The commitment that His Majesty has shown is second to none, and he was and remains an inspiration to all of those who battle for climate. I hope that you will take some time to look with detail at the communiqué, and I hope that you will, like me, be amazed by the depth of the understanding and the commitment of our 56 leaders. If you want to see what commitment looks like, look at the face of the 56 who came. And I'm very proud to sit at this table with representatives from each of our regions. This is a Commonwealth which is growing stronger because we listen to each other, because we care about each other, and because there is absolute determination in our family that our humanity will not only continue to survive, but we must thrive. And we must thrive for our children. So I really want to thank you for staying so long with us, and I hope that you, once you fully understood what's in this communiqué, you'll be as happy as the 56 leaders who together crafted it with love, with generosity, and with a determination to be the difference we need to make in this world. And I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary General, and I'm absolutely confident this will give you enough copy and good headlines for filing. But with that, I'd also like to now welcome questions, and the floor is open. Please do identify yourself. Who would like to go first, please? Please identify yourself and the publication as well. Thank you.
Good evening, Your Excellencies. Good evening, Your Test. Good evening, Your Excellencies. My name is Sarafina Sanarivi from the Samoa Observer newspaper, the one and only daily newspaper in Samoa. I have a question for the Secretary General. You talked about the Apia Ocean Declaration, and given the urgent need to protect our ocean's ecosystem and the livelihoods they support, How will Commonwealth leaders ensure that the commitment outlined in the Apia Ocean Declaration translates into measurable actions and benefits for communities reliant on these resources? And if I have a question for the host leader, Prime Minister Fiame. Samoa became the first Pacific island to host CHOGM. What key insights did your government gain from hosting this historic experience? And what do you believe was the driving force behind the successful hosting of CHOGM this year? And on behalf of every public servant in Samoa, is there going to be a public holiday next Monday? Thank you.
Prime Minister first, please.
Well, I mean, one of the, I think, objectives in asking the Commonwealth family to come to Samoa and to come to the Pacific is very often in these international fora that, you know, countries belong to, including the Commonwealth. They always talk about how important it is to recognize, acknowledge the diversity within the organization. And I think my other fellow speakers have alluded to this issue, how, you know, we all come from different places. But for the Pacific, you know, especially on the issue of climate change, we've advocated so strongly because it is about survival. And to bring the Commonwealth to Samoa was an opportunity for the Commonwealth family to see for themselves our lived realities. So I think, you know, that objective has been achieved. I mean, we talk about it, we advocate, you know, we try and influence, but, you know, we're a region of small island states. But bringing the family here, I think, has deepened their understanding of the specificities of the challenges facing the Pacific and small island states. With regards to the hosting, we've had such kind expressions from our guests of how they've appreciated the welcome and the hosting by Samoa. I think this is another thing we also wanted to demonstrate. You know, often island countries are seen as, you know, not having enough resources, whether they be financial or human. But I think what we've been able to convey to the Commonwealth family is that this is the true nature of resilience. When you utilize what you do have in your hands to be able to maintain your livelihoods, keep hope for the future. And this was a very important thing, that we can demonstrate that despite all the challenges, small island states can still come forward and be able to bring the world to its own place and to demonstrate how we've been able to manage and navigate our way through all the challenges that we face. And we have to acknowledge, too, that we've navigated with the partnership of the Commonwealth family and other networks which operate internationally, the multilateral organizations. And multilateral organizations are so important to small states to try and keep the playing field level. So in short, the hosting from our side, we've done the Samoan thing. We've called everyone in. Everyone has their job to do. And I think from the feedback that we've got, that we've been able to achieve the hosting objectives that we had planned for, not only in terms of welcoming, but I've always said to people when they said, you know, CHOGM will be a really big thing for you. And what I've said, yes, but it is a meeting. And as a chairperson, that was my priority, that what needed to be achieved through the processes of governance, negotiation, and the carrying out of the development effort through the Commonwealth, we could do that business. And we've been able to achieve that at this meeting. Thank you very much.
I can come to the question you asked me, which is really how are we going to implement the Apia Ocean Declaration? I think one of the most important things to distinguish the way in which the Commonwealth delivers things is we are utterly practical. So if you look at the declaration, it is not just an aspirational list, it's a to-do list. We've created the Blue Charter in order to implement the actions which we have committed to. We are also, all of us, going to be advocating strongly at COP, which is going to be in Baku in November, how to implement this. It's also an instrument that we intend to use to get the money that we need to implement those things which will help us to adapt and protect our ocean. We have, as you know, the Climate Finance Access Hub. But just to give you an example of the actions that will help to implement the Apia Ocean Declaration, we know that a number of our countries need a nature-based seawall to help with keeping the sea level and containing it as best we can. In Fiji, just recently, we were able, using data that we have culled, we've got a program called Common Sensing, where we work with UNITAR, UNISAT, the British Space Agency, ourselves and others, to pool the information, the geospatial data we need to understand what may be coming next. When's the next cyclone? When's the next hurricane? How much will the sea rise? But also to use the information as to what type of seawall would we have to build. And as you know, usually that would take years and certainly many, many months. We were able, using AI, an AI simulator, to put an application together to the Adaptation Fund and to file it and to have it granted within 12 months. That was $5.7 million. Now that means that instead of waiting, making an application and waiting for years, we will be able to implement with Fiji that seawall. But it's not just Fiji. Because we've cracked, if you like, the way to do the application, how to get the information, how to create the right seawall in the right place for the right country. And we believe that of the 25 small island developing states, probably 23 of us need a seawall. We now have the capacity, if we can get just a little bit more money, to make applications on behalf of all of those countries to help with adaptation. And so we want to push back that maybe half a degree in order to keep the sea back. So it's very, very practical. This charter, this declaration, gives us the baseline from which we can argue and work, and it's utterly practical.
Thank you, Secretary General. I see one hand here. Yes, please. Your name and the organization that you represent first, and then we're getting a mic too, so please stand by.
Thank you. Hello? Alofa. You hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Alofa to the distinguished panelists. Thank you for your kind words. You know, I'm as a Samoan. We swell with pride with all the kind words you've said about our country and the hosting. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. So my question is, according to the leader statements that has been issued just recently, there's under number 11, also got to do with the Apia Commonwealth Ocean Declaration. I just wanted to ask, because there's a recommitment to the goal of limiting global warming. I'm just curious as to how close are we from the Pacific to those targets that's been set before, and if you're able to elaborate on what kind of actions we are going to commit to. The second one is, I just wanted to ask whether I might get in trouble with this, because we have a thing called the Pacific Way, and we come together, we talk about things, and then we, like Honourable Prime Minister said, the country was asked to come, we are hosting, everybody's got a job to do. I'm just saying, because of the timing of some of the events, the disastrous events that happened with the Manawa Nui, we are here, we are talking about the climate. And I'm just saying, under number 10, it says environment's flourishing. Now, we know that while you're all here, I was just wondering whether you had some kind of discussion as a Commonwealth family to help Samoa in the effort to clean up that whatever damage or environmental impact that has done. And my last question is, if I may, it's got to do with the press, the freedom of the press, etc. I just wanted to ask, I want to gauge your opinions on how important it is for our leaders to be seen or to be, accountable to the people in terms of constant or information, because people listen to the leaders, what they say.
Thank you.
It's very important.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Secretary General, please.
Well, firstly to say, in relation to your last issue, the freedom of the press is, of course, very important. And if you'll look at all the statements made in terms of the Commonwealth over many, many years, that has been one of our lodestars. And the fact that we have the media principles, which have been endorsed and have received the assent from all our leaders, I think gives you a very, very good indicator. The paragraph 11 is really to underline the importance that every single one of us sees to struggling, striving, doing every action we can to keep that 1.5 alive. We know that for our small island states that may be the difference between our survival and us losing our land. And therefore, the leaders felt it was absolutely right that that should be underscored, and that we would be telling everyone, we haven't given up, we're still determined, we are going to do everything we can to drive and reverse climate change to avert this crisis. And that's why the comments I made about how we're going to use geospatial data and AI and everything we can think of to come up with the solutions we need on adaptation more quickly. And what was really wonderful is both Singapore, who are leading in technological development, and India have both committed to help all our member states to use the new technological opportunities that there are to help us all to come together and to come up with the solutions we need. And so we thank all our members for their determination to be by our side as we all fight to stay alive.
Your Excellency, would you care to respond?
Yeah, thank you. I think the issue of the sinking of the New Zealand naval vessel, I think, this is a bilateral issue between Samoa and New Zealand. It's not necessary. I don't think we need the whole Commonwealth to come and assist with that. And the work done between the two governments are in progress.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I gather the Honourable Minister from Malaysia has a very pressing engagement, so that will be okay. Thank you very much. We understand that. A very good evening, and thank you again for your time. I notice the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. Stephen, you have a question. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me there?
You go ahead, Stephen.
Thank you. I have two questions. I'll happily address it to the whole panel, whoever would care to answer it. The first is on climate change, the second on the question of reparatory justice. On climate change, can you give me a sense of what discussions leaders, perhaps particularly from small island states, had about how they could meaningfully apply more pressure on larger and developed countries on the question of climate finance in particular? What are the best mechanisms, in the view of Commonwealth leaders, for unlocking that climate finance, and what needs to change within multilateral and international institutions, including financial institutions, to change the way these rules function to ensure money can flow? And secondly, if I may, just on the paragraph on reparatory justice that's included in the final communique, which has just been issued, are you able to say what this conversation about reparatory justice, what shape that might take? How do leaders envision this conversation occurring? Would there be any formal mechanism for this conversation? Would it be done informally or bilaterally? Any further light you could shed on that would be gratefully received. Thank you.
Honourable Prime Minister first, please.
Financing, of course, was one of the papers produced by the Secretariat in the broader sense of development financing, but of course the very critical links to the impacts that climate change has had, the necessary financing, especially for adaptations. I mean, mitigation really speaks to emitters and what needs to be happening with that sector. We were fortunate to have a briefing and an update from the Prime Minister of Barbados on the Bridgetown initiative, and essentially some of the, well, not only discussions, but the evolving strategies, because part of the, I think, the challenge with financing is the infrastructure of our finance systems that are in place. So that is an ongoing development, and it speaks to what we are seeing essentially as roadblocks to financing being made available. Now, for us, the SG will probably add on, but from the Pacific, we have developed a Pacific Resilience Facility, of which we're setting it up as a central point to attract, I suppose is the best word, financing, and so that it's more targeted to the Pacific. So, of course, our major development partners, Australia, New Zealand, and then our other partners, mostly from Europe, who have indicated their interest, because we do have difficulties as small nations to access funding in the first place, but having this facility that has been developed, we can then have readily accessible funding and closer to home, and with an infrastructure that is friendlier to the Pacific Islands and their respective administrations.
Thank you. Just to add a word or two in addition to what the Prime Minister has just said, you'll notice that unlocking finance has perhaps been one of the most important things that the Commonwealth has been pressing for certainly as long as I have been Secretary General and before. This issue of lack of finance has been seen as almost an intractable one. And that is why, as you know, the leaders, prior to my becoming Secretary General, had identified that as something which the next Secretary General, namely me, should address. And the idea they had is that we should create a Commonwealth Climate Finance Access Hub. Well, that's how I interpreted it, because it was clear that all our member states were struggling to get the right information, to get the right applications, because most of our members were not successful when they made applications to the green or other funds. And so the whole purpose of the creation of the Climate Finance Access Hub, which is in Mauritius, was so that the hub could work directly with the various climate funds to understand better what exactly they needed our member states to do in order to get the money. We then employed a number of climate finance advisors who were placed in country to help our member states to make those applications. And we used the data that we had from the more developed member states and from the UN agencies to help us better assist our members. And with, as I said earlier, with just $8.2 million, we have created a system of applications which is so robust that so far no application which we have made on behalf of our members has failed. So that's why I say we have the 365 million plus going into the hands of our member states, and we have 500 more million in the pipeline. But as I said earlier, we know that if we are to circumvent this disaster, we must have more money. And that's why the Universal Vulnerability Index was created by the Commonwealth in order to help the IFIs, the international financial institutions, not just to look at GDP, but actually to understand better the vulnerability that our members faced in order that they can mitigate. Now, we are driving hard. We have a group of finance ministers who have come together so that we can argue robustly with the IFIs that the adoption of the Bridgetown Initiative as a way forward and the use of what is now described as the multi-dimensional vulnerability index, which was culled directly from our Universal Vulnerability Index, to help our members to better address this issue of climate finance. Now, it has been a long and hard discussion, but we do see real movement in the right direction. So you'll see mention made of that, and it's a very important step forward. As I've said before, the beauty of our Commonwealth is we've never run away from any of the difficult discussions. And so it was the Commonwealth who faced up and anti-corruption and anti-apartheid. It was also the Commonwealth in 1989, 3 years before the Earth Summit, who first talked about climate change, and it was the Commonwealth who faced racial discrimination. So what has happened is, just like any other discussion, our members have come together and they have decided, and I will read from paragraph 21 for those of you who may not yet have had an opportunity to see it. Heads emphasised that the Commonwealth had never retreated from respectful conversations on difficult issues, but rather has been at the vanguard of matters of great importance and significance to its members. Heads noted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, the Commonwealth Charter, the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 75-123, and the acknowledgement of the Durban Declaration and Programme of Action that slavery and the slave trade, including the transatlantic trade, as appalling tragedies in the history of humanity, not only because of their abhorrent barbarism, but also in terms of their magnitude, organized nature, and especially their negation of the essence of the victims, and that, and here is in quote, slavery and the slave trade as a crime against humanity, and should always have been so, especially the transatlantic slave trade. Now, as a result, heads noting the calls for a discussion on reparatory justice with regard to the transatlantic slave trade, the trade in enslaved Africans and chattel enslavement, and recognizing the importance of this matter to members of the Commonwealth, the majority of which share common historical experiences in relation to this abhorrent trade, chattel enslavement, the debilitation and dispossession of indigenous people, indentureship, colonialism, blackbirding, and their enduring effects, agreed that the time has come for a meaningful, truthful, and respectful conversation towards forging a common future based on equity. Heads further agreed to continue playing an active role in bringing about such an inclusive conversations, addressing these harms, paying special attention to women and girls who suffered disproportionately from these appalling tragedies in the history of humanity. Now, our Commonwealth is going to take exactly the same approach to considering these matters, and I believe successfully that they have taken to every difficult issue which has been painful and has been a matter of concern for our members. And so that is, I think, the best way of explaining what they have decided to do in the words that they have chosen to include in the communiqué. And so I thank you for your question.
We can do one last question because we are now past time. So I'll take one last one, your name and the organization. If it's short, if you promise to keep it short, we'll take two very quick ones. Thank you very much. But these are the last two. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, it is my privilege and my humble heart. My name is Lepai Vat II Tualata from the Star Point, Tufasinoala Radio, Global, Brisbane or Queensland, Australia. So my question is towards the Prime Minister of Samoa and also the outgoing General Secretary. So according to the whole CHOGM meeting, to me personally, it was very informative. So much of good, constructive information from each sessions. But I've noticed the Prime Minister have said the resilience, growth. Well, it's not a new word, and I believe everyone agrees with that. However, my question tonight, you may have already touched some of the answers, but what are the Commonwealth plans of actions to sustain the resilience growth? And also, what are Commonwealth plan of actions to minimize the vulnerability in the Commonwealth and climate change in the Pacific and Samoa inclusive?
Thank you.
And a question to the, I noticed that everyone wants to steal the Prime Minister. Is that because of her knowledge, the way of her hospitality, and first time ever in Pacific, the meeting of CHOGM, and how she conducted the meeting? Was that you meant about everyone wants to steal her experience?
I think it was.
Thank you very
all
much,
of it.
and congratulations for the great work that you've done as you are outgoing Secretary General. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think I should answer the last question first to save the Prime Minister's blushes. It really was all of it. Her wisdom, her charm, the way in which she could diffuse anything that came her way, and everybody was absolutely enthralled by her. In fact, I know that they wanted to put in not only eloquent but so wise. So I think she embodies everything that is quintessentially, we now see as quintessentially Samoan, and that's why I'm afraid you better hang on to her, because this lot, they're going to steal her.
Thank you. I think I can perhaps answer your resilience question and, how we're going to do it. I introduced a Samoan concept or proverb to the meeting. It's that one, Matitiva Fafsangat, that we face each other in poverty. That's probably not a very good translation. But the point here is that in hard times, we don't turn our backs to each other, but we face each other. And in fact, it is in those challenging times that it is so important to retain the face-to-face. And we acknowledge the other. Because quite often, when it comes down to difficult times, we turn our back. We don't want to acknowledge all the other peripheral stuff that is around us. Perhaps paragraph 10 of the leader's statement can best answer your resilience. So I quote it here. We reaffirmed our commitment to collective action that weaves resilience into all our efforts for our Commonwealth, including our 1.5 billion young people, as articulated in the Samoa communique. So this is where society stands strong, that has to do with governance, democratic principles, so forth. Human rights are respected, the rule of law. Where peace prevails, our environments flourish, the activities that we're doing in respect to climate change, and where economies can thrive, meaning, first and foremost, we do for ourselves, right? Of course, we need the help of our friends. And the last comment I want to make about lessons learned and actions taken is our last meeting of the Commonwealth in Rwanda. Now, you all know about Rwanda, which is only just a generation ago, 30, 40 years of that genocide. When we all went to Rwanda, I suppose we all had in our mindsets that it's going to be one of those countries that is still broken. But when we arrived there, Rwanda looked like a developed country. It was peaceful, and it was clean. And what they did, apart from that key thing of conflict resolution between people, but they recognized key resources that they needed to bring in to escalate their development, and this speaks to human resource, utilizing their youth, We refer here to the 1.5 billion young people. And of course, they're women. And you could see it in Rwanda. And that's the lesson learned, I think, that was passed on from that meeting to this meeting. And I just want to acknowledge that, my friend Olivia.
Thank you. Perhaps you'd like to comment as well, if you could, please.
Thank you very much. We have indeed suffered a terrible genocide against the Tutsi in 1994, but now we have 70% of the population now in Rwanda who was not born at that time. We have a young population, and we have decided to use the resources we have. But first, of course, we had to work on reconciliation because losing 1 million people were killed out of 7.5 million in 94. It was something terrible for the society that was broken, but we decided to move forward, investing in our youth, in capacity building, in education, promoting women. We have in Rwanda, for example, 61% of our parliament are women. We are the first in the world with the highest number of women in the parliament. And we are, as I said, also investing. We're talking about AI and skills of the future. We are investing in our youth so that they can be well equipped in having creating the jobs of tomorrow, and also to be able to be employed. And this is what we are doing. We are forward-looking. We have a terrible past, but this past didn't prevent us from moving forward and trying to not to reinvent the wheel, but to see how other countries have succeeded to do, because we have economies actually in this part of the world that did great in over the past 50 or 60 years. So we are having those models and trying to transform profoundly our society, our economy, and being here in Samoa with other challenges. And I also seen resilience with, Samoa is a small island, but they have shown the world how to host an international conference with the most welcoming manner, and also with leadership in leading our meetings to have documents like the communique we have and the leaders' declaration that we have, which will help us for the next 2 years until the following CHOGM in Antigua and Barbuda continue transforming our community and empowering our people in facing the challenges that are in front of us, like climate change and others. So it's resilience for our Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we have gone a full hour, and I'm sorry we've gone a little over. Please join me in thanking our panelists. They've had a long but very fruitful day. Thank you, and to our friends from the media. Your interest is deeply appreciated. Thank you, and I hope you've had a productive CHOGM as well. I do hope you've got great stories. Thank you for coming. Good night.